Feel free to post in the chat where you're joining us from today too. That would be interesting to see where we've got everybody coming from. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for everybody to join us as well. Nice, welcome from Berlin, Canada. Fantastic.
Cool.
I'm in Santiago. Luke, I'm assuming you're in London or somewhere?
Me? No,
Yeah,
I'm in Lisbon at the moment.
Oh, Lisbon, fantastic.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm in this like red box of a room, so I'm typically quite ruddy-faced already, but even more so here, so forgive me for that.
No, it's a great background. And Vegas, yeah, nice. Vegas, cool. People from everywhere. We're very global today. Welcome, welcome. Give us a minute just to let some more people in. Perfect. All right, great. I think we can probably start. People will probably keep coming in, but we'll just get started here. So hi, everybody. Welcome to the Whereby webinar about the future of hybrid events. I'm Annie. I work in customer success here at Whereby, so I've been very lucky to work quite closely with our virtual events customers. So yeah, really excited to discuss this topic today. We do have a wonderful group of guest speakers. I'll do some quick housekeeping rules first, just to get that over and done with. During the session, if you don't mind, please keep your microphone muted and your camera off. And we will have time for a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if any questions come to mind throughout it, feel free to drop them in the chat, and you can find that icon. Yes, perfect. Great, sorry, a few more people coming in. And also feel free to tweet us anytime at Whereby as well. The webinar will also be recorded, so we'll follow up with a link and you can pass it to others who weren't able to join or if you need to leave early. And feel free to react with emojis throughout the webinar. You can find them by hovering down on the chat icon. Makes it a little bit colorful and fun, so feel free to emoji away at your leisure. Perfect. Alrighty, so let's get into this. I'd just like to introduce our speakers and then give them some time to introduce themselves as well. So we've got Ashley, who's an events manager at Miro, Luke, Director of Brand and Communications at Pleo, and Matt as CEO at V Venues. Welcome everybody. Maybe Luke, if you want to start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Annie. So my name is Luke, Director of Brand and Comms at Pleo. Pleo is a spend management platform, one of those many fintechs that are out there in the world. We're making expenses and paying for stuff at work a lot less painful for companies up and down Europe. We are 600 people in the company, growing like crazy. So if people interested in any sort of roles after I've spoken here for an hour, then for sure reach out. And at the moment, I'm based in Lisbon, normally based in Copenhagen, and super excited to learn from the expert panel here about hybrid events for this year, because we certainly have a few ideas cooking ourselves.
Thank you so much. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Jenkins. I'm an events manager at Miro. I actually started in the height of the pandemic. I got an events role in the pandemic, which is really awesome and amazing to join the rocket ship of Miro. Miro is an online collaborative whiteboard. We help facilitate distributed and visual collaboration. So I've been working on all events at Miro, from sponsored events to our flagship user conference to webinars. I'm actually at an event right now that's a hybrid event, so happy to provide any insights and feedback.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd love to chat about that throughout the session today for sure. And finally, Matt.
So hi, I'm Matt, CEO for V Venues, or of V Venues. We are actually a company with a long history in, let's say, physical events that during the pandemic searched for other points or other possibilities for how to make virtual events just as good as physical ones. So we invented our own, of course, to some extent based on Whereby technology. But then we've added a lot of the kind of event experiences that you would considered to be successful in any kind of let's say, physical event. So visit our website or something to just get an impression of where we are going. We had like 500 virtual events during the last 2 years, more than 1 million attendees, and they are all unique in their design and experience.
Awesome. Really excited to get your perspective on that as well throughout the session too. So I think we've got a great mix of opinions that we'll have today. So awesome. So I think we'll dive right into the discussion. Just wanted to start out with just an understanding of hybrid events, what they are, and just get some insights there. So maybe I'll start with you, Ashley. You are at an event right now too, so feel free to share any insights from that. But what do you define as a hybrid event? How do you define that?
Sure. I define a hybrid event as any event where there's a combination of both virtual, like an in-person event, a virtual and in-person event. So just a combination of that type of kind of configuration. It is really kind of a spectrum. So you could have your emphasis on virtually, you can have your emphasis in person, but it's just a combination of being in person and virtual.
Awesome. Nice. Thank you very much for that. So obviously, as you just said, then it can be a combination of different things. And I have read that, obviously it's a spectrum, like you said, other than just being 50% online, 50% in person. So Luke, I know that you recently, Pleo hosted Forward. What have you experienced? Like, what's your experience be with hosting hybrid events and the different setups? We'd just love to get some insight from you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Forward was actually, it was our sort of digital summit dedicated to the future of work, or the world of work today. And we ran that in December, on December 9th last year, expecting this to be a hybrid event. But in fact, of course, due to the nature of the pandemic, we had to sort of pull back on some of those in-person efforts quite last minute, which was painful after how much operational effort and production effort we put in. But of course, people's health and safety is the most important. So that was a fully virtual event. I think for us, like, we are now planning Forward 2.0, whatever that looks like, and having this hybrid element as a key instrumental for what we deliver there. To take one step further from what Ashley's mentioning, for me, I think a good hybrid event is one that has as much prioritization to the in-person experience, which you'd probably expect for an event, as well as that hybrid experience. So it doesn't feel that you're just necessarily blindly or blankly looking at a screen for a day. Instead, you're feeling engaged through that experience.
No, absolutely. And what did you see during the event? What was the most successful way to engage with people who are attending? Any specific challenges that you faced? I'd be interested to sort of know how you navigated that, or any additional sort of experiences that you had.
Yeah, definitely. So that aspect again was like very much digital centric. So everyone was like tuning in. We had 9,000 signups and quite heavy attendance on the day, which was super nice. One thing that we really tried to incorporate was sort of downtime in between quite chunky topics around, how can workplaces be more employee centric, by having light entertainment. So we incorporated like video and music production and live bands that were basically performing for everyone tuning in globally. And that's, such a communal effort in general, isn't it? Watching live music. So absolutely, that was something that seemed to really resonate with people and really fire up the chat. So things like that, that actually are a little bit more than expected than from what the agenda is there. That's a good way of doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's definitely an evolving thing, and just seeing what we can do to best engage with people. And Mats is probably the best person to speak to. This nicely flows into the user experience of being, running and being at a hybrid event. Would love to know, Mats, from your perspective, what are some of the ways that you can creatively provide for an immersive hybrid event, and what vVenues has done? And I would really love to understand how you've tackled that.
Yeah, so I really agree with what you previously said. It's all about the engagement and all about the experience, and to make people really feel that they are getting value, and that they could stay on for a longer period of time. Otherwise, it would just be like a broadcast. So, our take on that would be to create this event experience. So it's totally based on the experience with design and with all types of content within. But we base the user experience completely on what the user decides for themselves, what they want to consume. So of course there will be like a main stage, but then you put a lot of content in there, and I think that is what really enriches the experience, that you're able to consume whatever you like, whether it's music, whether it's content, movies, whatever it is, and you feel you're kind of you're in control of your own experience. Actually 84% of our people or attendees afterwards in the questionnaires claim that they've been visiting actually a physical event, and I think that's a good judgment.
Yeah, fantastic. And how have you sort of tackled the networking, like to make sure that people can network and engage with one another as well?
I think that's really one of the key pillars. When we started the development, was actually one of the most important things to solve, to have a network which is similar to any physical experience. So that's what I said, we use the Whereby technology to meet or to integrate like physical or virtual meeting rooms in the platform. So you can search for people and you can start engaging by text or pop right into a video meeting. And you can have like group meetings within the platform totally seamlessly. And I think that's really, an important aspect.
No, absolutely. I think the networking is key. Ashley, at the session you're attending at the moment, is there a networking element to it too? And what's your experience been actually being an attendee?
Yeah, there's
day at Moscow.
There's tons. Yeah, hi. There's tons of networking for sure, and I think it's important to find creative ways to bridge the gap between both in-person and virtual attendees. Like even ways to get feedback of like at an event that I was previously at, we had a way where we had our cameras on for the virtual attendees. They were on like the stage of a session so that you can really feel like they're a part of the conference and you're a part of the conference with them as well. A way to make it engaging. Just because you're attending the hybrid or the virtual aspect of the event doesn't mean that you're not like present in the in-person live event. So I think ways of like bridging that gap and really connecting those people. There might be someone super interesting that's attending the event, but they may be in another city and I'm here and I'm connecting with them. So I really think that's super important in terms of like the networking. Yes, you can have a happy hour, but think of some other kind of creative ways throughout the event where you're really connecting all attendees of the event.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's really important. Luke, do you have any additional comments on what engagement looks like in the hybrid format? Anything additional to say on that front?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a brand conversation for me, at least. Like what is important for the company putting on that event? What are they trying to achieve? But also what is the vision that they have? And hopefully that then sort of translates into bespoke experiences on the day itself or the days themselves that feel like relevant for that company. That's not to say every company should do a cook along or everyone should have like a musical guest, but what is the kind of event that you would like to be attending as a company, and sort of start with that to find a bespoke experience that is, truly more than expected.
For sure. That's awesome.
And just
sorry, Matt, were you about to say something?
Just to connect to what Ashley said, I think it's very important now when it's getting into hybrids that you can interact in both audiences, both the virtual one and the physical one, and that they can find easy ways to communicate with each other.
No, 100%. Yeah, it's a lot of different elements to balance there for sure. And Ashley, I think we'd sort of touched on this previously, but how can hybrid events help with accessibility and inclusivity in your mind?
I think hybrid events honestly can help with accessibility and inclusivity, because if I am not able to travel, or if I am, a working mom, or if I really want to attend multiple events, you can maximize your exposure. You extend your reach of the audience. You're making your you're making your attendee group more diverse when you have hybrid events. So in terms of inclusivity, I would really recommend doing hybrid events because you want, diversity and inclusion and all of that. That fuels creativity, that fuels like memorable experiences. Even at a purely in-person event, I just love interacting with people who have traveled from all over the country, all over the globe, and be like, oh, I met a really interesting person from France, or this is what they're doing in this part of the world in our industry, and maybe we should be taking a little bit more look at this strategy or this style. In terms of accessibility, I think hybrid events can really help with that forefront.
Well, I do.
No worries. You have events where you can provide live translations on the spot if you're attending from home. So you're expanding your reach to different people who may not have been able to access the event, closed captioning, things like that. You really are making that event more accessible. Even an on-demand session, say there's, you're picking the schedule. Sometimes it's tough because you have two sessions you want to attend at the same time. When they make that event or that session recorded, or you can go back and watch it on demand, you're making all of your content really more accessible by doing hybrid and virtual events.
Awesome. 100%. And Matt, what has your experience been, obviously providing a platform for this and dealing directly with your customers? Have you seen that the accessibility and inclusivity is a big thing for them, like reducing the need to travel and all of those different things, and just being able to involve people more globally?
I mean, most types of accessibility is of course by the nature of virtualization is of course obvious that you don't have to travel, you save money and the ecological footprint. But I actually have a wonderful story from Women in Tech that we produced with the person who was very shy, and she wrote in a post-event report that this was really the first event where she felt really included, because she could participate on equal terms to anybody else. Otherwise, it's just those people who speaks the most and who takes the most place that would have leg room in the environment. But in this case, she could really participate into any discussion. So it has more levels of inclusivity than perhaps just the obvious ones. But those are given, and I'm quite sure that especially, let's say, very large global events may have to be reconsidered from environmental perspectives, for example. Our guess is that between every large physical event, there will be 2 or 3 virtual ones.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's an exciting space to be in for sure. Luke, shifting from in-person to virtual, what are some of the fundamental things that you need to consider with that shift, would you say, from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's in some ways like quite a different ball game, isn't it? You don't need to build a space necessarily in person, but at the same time, I think that the production facility is so key for engagement. So beyond the fantastic program that you may have, you need to have great technology that is driving that effort, that makes people come through clearly, like hopefully we are today, that you can be seen clearly, and there will be no technical hiccups, because we are unfortunately very procrastinating people. So it's good to have something where we can have the full attention of attendees and their presence. I think that's probably something even heightened even more in the sort of virtual space. I'd really try to consider. Another one as well, just to kind of circle back towards the inclusivity piece, is beyond your attendees, there's also that opportunity for your program as well. So as a programmer, you really have the opportunity to cast your net far wider and bring in rockstar speakers that may otherwise be completely out of reach for you. So that's something that really broadens the opportunities of virtual events, which of course you just don't have in the sort of one location context.
Oh, for sure. No, I think that's great. Alrighty, so I might move on to some sort of creative ways to host events and kind of get into that space. What difference does it make to hybrid events having video call software integrated into your platform? Mats, this is probably the best question to ask you, but yeah, we'd just love to know how having it integrated really helps that hybrid event run so much smoother.
Yeah, I'd say it's key because I mean our ambition is to recreate the kind of physical event space and where all kinds of networking is crucial, but also to have like breakout sessions. So it's one thing that we stream on the main audience or on the main stage, but then on the other hand, you may need some breakout sessions for smaller groups. So I think it's definitely a must-have to have that fully integrated into any kind of platform. And I also think that, I mean, overall experience is getting so important today because during the pandemics, I mean, everybody was just looking for a quick solution. Now we're looking for something that may really contribute and really enhance your brand. So it's not just a worst case solution, it's actually something which will contribute to the experience itself. And then, of course, you need platforms supporting that.
No, for sure. Absolutely. And how do you differentiate yourself in the space? That's again, this is probably another good question for you. Obviously, everybody's sort of moving into the space and trying to find creative ways to engage people. How do you differentiate yourself and sort of stand out in that hybrid events realm?
I mean, it's hard to describe without showing the platform, but it's really to the way we design the events. That you have a really on-brand experience. It's customized totally in design, and then you have the layer of networking and freedom to consume or digest whatever kind of content that you like. So it's a very free and open version. I think that is key and a very clear differentiation to these more like system-based platforms.
For sure. Great, thank you. Alrighty, what other questions can I ask everybody? You're just firing them away so quickly. So maybe what I'll go through is just some of the biggest learnings or insights from running, attending, producing hybrid events. I might just ask each of you, what the biggest learning or insight has been. Ashley, I might start with you. Just in general, what have your biggest learnings been?
Awesome. I'd probably say my biggest learning from hybrid events is really understanding what that unique event strategy is. Kind of going back to like the spectrum of like, where am I putting my emphasis on the event? Unfortunately, like it is really tough to have like an even 50-50 split with hybrid events, but finding ways creatively to, if there is like, say I have an event and I'm expecting 20,000 people for the event, that might be a breakdown of 5,000 people in person and 15,000 people virtually. Those are going to be two different experiences. Even just the size of the group is a lot different. What are some creative ways that I can really make sure that they have a more equitable experience? And I know that in the past, like I've attended events where we didn't really think necessarily about the virtual attendees. We were just like, okay, we're going to set up a live stream. And so that's the way that they're connected. But there are some creative ways that they can, really feel engaged. Like we can create up a conference virtual shop where they can shop for swag, because one of the main things with in-person events is like you get to bring back all the swag and that's great, but like if you aren't able to attend, you want to have a way that they can like have some kind of memento or memorable experience, some kind of takeaway for that. And then just really the biggest learning is to always iterate. Find ways, do the retrospective on the event, find ways to really maximize your exposure to your attendees, really make sure that everyone feels like included in the event for hybrid events, because we've only been doing it, really heavily for the last 2 years. So it's difficult, and we obviously want to like create the model. It's still kind of in the Plato stage and no one's really mastered it. there's a few people who have, but not too many.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, thank you very much for that. Luke, what would you say of your biggest learnings or insights?
Yeah, I mean, I'm learning a lot from just hearing Ashley talking, to be honest. But I think that's also what's super exciting, that we are at the infancy of what this looks like, right? So there isn't really a blueprint. Any of us could create a super compelling hybrid event, and it's a very ripe time for that as well. From some of the experiences I've attended, there is this aspect of interactivity, and we've spoken about it a little bit already today in terms of people coming in virtually to be represented as part of that, and then also in the room, but very little interactivity that I've seen so far for both sets of audiences. Like, what could that look like? How can one speak to the other? What kind of user-generated content can be created from that kind of experience? But then on the flip side, not everything does work quite so well in on a screen versus in real life. And I think one real key one is something like stand-up comedy. It's very, very hard. We've seen a lot of comedians doing that during the pandemic, but it's super hard to make that work, and when you don't have the vibration in the room. So one event that I'm like really inspired by, and I think they're running for the third year this year, is the New Yorker Festival, which has been hybrid for the last couple of years. And of course, they have a stacked program that everybody attends in virtual or in person, but there are bespoke experiences for the virtual folks as well as for the in-person folks. So that's something that maybe for those higher scale events, you can really unlock, trying to figure out something that clearly works better in one channel versus another.
No, absolutely. Love it. And Matt, you're very immersed in this, so I'm sure you have some good insights and learnings from the last few years to share with us.
Yeah, first, I think, Luke, the stand-up comedy would work very good in hybrids. So those cases where we've had with a small audience, but I mean, the larger it grows, the more interactive it becomes. So I think we're bridging that. But I mean, the biggest insight from my perspective is that it actually works, because we didn't really believe in that in the beginning, and the evolution has been so quick over these past 2 years. So it really has just unlocked a lot of creativity, which is, of course, I mean, we were forced into it, but then definitely we've found a new, very good path for the future. And I think we will continue to evolve, and so that is really a nice insight that we could do this. It was actually possible, and just because nobody explored it before, we haven't seen the real magnitude of it. So that was a great surprise to see how creative we could actually be. And the funny thing is that it's also unlocking a lot of new opportunities for the future. I mean, some of the projects that we are in at the moment are really so surprising to us that they would happen, because we would never have thought of them in the beginning. I mean, we are building a virtual world for product service training on a global perspective, because one of the main problems has been previously that if you make like a train the trainer program, you have one person who you set off to another part of the world, who are set off to another part of the world, who is then training some other people. And if there is a mistake, that consequences of the mistakes in the training will be quite heavy to bear, I mean, financially. If you do this fully virtually, you can also have like questionnaires afterwards, and you can really make sure that everybody attended the program, so you get a much higher quality and save money in the long run. And also building like virtual head offices and things like that. So I mean, we've just seen the beginning, I think.
No, absolutely, and you're doing some really, really cool things at V-Venues. When you were talking to Luke's point about making like the stand-up comedy more immersive or a better experience hybrid, I'd love to know like how you tackled that, or like how you see that as being something that you can make successful in a hybrid format.
I mean, because I think the main limitation in like stand-up comedy is that the actor or the comedian needs the feedback from the audience, and that will come naturally in the hybrid event, and then it becomes more funny to watch also from distance, and that's probably how we tackled it during the pandemics as well, when we had like stand-up comedy artists. We invited a small audience. They were, of course, seated with good distances and everything, but still there was an interaction. And I think that is the key or the necessary thing. And then you have, of course, the really brilliant ones who can perform this without an audience, but that's tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So I'll move on to the next sort of element of it, from insights to challenges. Ashley, I'd love to know, what are the biggest challenges that you have faced in regards to hybrid events?
Biggest challenge. Very good question.
A difficult one.
I'd probably say the biggest challenge with hybrid events that I've faced in the past all the coordination of the speakers, and it's tough to when you talk about hybrid events, we're talking about both virtual and in-person events, and we're moving back. It's like the planning, like you don't really know where your attendee is going to want to fall. And so in terms of planning for just things like logistics wise, like what's the expected attendance? Like if you give someone the option to attend a virtual event that's, free, like do you charge for that? Like the model of that is still not being solved because, you saw the last few years, like most of the virtual events that we propped up were free. And most people are coming to expect free events. There's quite a big drop off on like the registrations that you get for a virtual event versus an in-person event. If I have to travel to attend an event and I've paid for a flight and I'm more likely to attend that event. But with the virtual, you're signing up and sometimes it's hard to really set a price to that because oftentimes people will just release that content later and people will have it like what to really justify the value of like listening to a stream. Like that's when you have to really like curate and design that experience for the people that are tuning in virtually. Because I have seen it where when you're attending in person, there's a ticket, there's, food and beverage attached to it, but then they're often like have the event online that's virtual. Oh, watch for free, attend for free. But then it comes across as like, it's a little bit less than. So the challenge for me is to like really create like the memorable, like virtual component of a hybrid event that isn't just the stream, that has other complex, memorable, engaging aspects. I've seen conferences charge for, the virtual component, but you have to justify it in some kind of way. And I think that's really been like a tough challenge to do that. Cause I, as an organizer, it's expensive to put on these events. You're basically putting on the event twice. You're basically putting on the event twice and it can be expensive, but you don't want to price people out from, attending, and you want to make sure that it really is like accessible as well.
Absolutely. Do you see a lot of people signing up to virtual events and then quite a large proportion of them not necessarily attending, and then obviously they're probably wanting to asynchronously listen to the recording or something like that? Is that kind of a common thing?
It is tough. Like you have to create a draw of like, why is it important for me as a virtual attendee to attend live? Mm-hmm. And that's in the design of the event. I can attend live because I will have the opportunity to ask a question and get my question answered by the speaker. It's not, it's a two-way engagement. I'm not just watching a stream, because then you could you'll see that, if you can't make it, sign up for the recording and watch it later. Like, is that really truly like a really engaging and immersive like event experience from a virtual attendee's perspective? No. But if I'm attending virtually and I know that I'm getting hands-on training as part of my, event ticket, or I know that I'm going to get, a swag kit sent to me, if they're having a cocktail reception, I get a cocktail kit as well. Like there's, we're pairing it together. So you have to like really think about what is the draw and what's going to really keep someone for that virtual component, as opposed to like watching it later, especially if you are providing that for free on demand or a recording.
Absolutely. Have you seen anything that's been particularly successful, or are you just really iterating, trying some different things just to keep that actual engagement in the moment versus it just being a recording? I'm assuming you've tried the swag and different things like that. Is there anything like that's been particularly engaging for people that are attending?
Yeah, I saw one event, and it's something that I kind of want to implement myself, where it does take a little bit more coordination. We there was like this is kind of bridging the gap between the virtual and in person. We had like a video wall. So imagine like 8x8 video screens all on top of each other, and it really is just like a recording or a live aspect of people at home tuning in, but it was at the physical event. So you're walking around the expo hall and you see someone who is a virtual attendee.
Oh, that's really cool.
And you can create like phone booths where you're able to engage and like set up a video call with someone who is attending virtually, and I'm networking and talking with them. I thought that was such a really great idea, and I think that if you just like in the planning stages, just really take time to think about the strategy, think about like, if I was in their shoe, would I like this or would I do this? Do you go back and watch all the recordings if you sign up for an event? And if you don't do that, then why would you ask someone else to do that?
For sure. That's awesome. I love that idea. Luke, what would you say has been the biggest challenges you faced?
Yeah, that's a sort of like follow on from Ashley's point. I've been to a couple of events like that as well. And one of the biggest challenges is just making sure that tech works, right? Or at least that's one of the biggest anxieties that you'll have as an event organizer. So I've been to a few where admittedly, maybe like in the midst of the pandemic, you kind of give some people credit for trying, but that can be a really buggy experience. And if one of your attendees doesn't make the flight in the morning to get to that conference center, they probably don't blame you for it. Versus if they have an issue with their Wi-Fi, that's still going to be something that you feel as that organizer. Also, connecting to what Ashley said as well with the what is the ROI of a hybrid event, and how do you actually measure that as an organizer? Surely there's got to be some value add to being hybrid that maybe warrants a cost. I mentioned the New Yorker Festival previously, and I'm quite sure that that's paid maybe not as expensively as the in-person event, but if you can create a truly once in a lifetime kind of experience, so actually removing some of that on-demand element, having some exclusivity of speakers or experiences, then I'm quite certain that people will pay for that, and that maybe alleviates some of those challenges. There was also someone in the comments that mentioned Topia and sort of using the metaverse and how we can kind of create dynamic gaming experiences. I think that's a super interesting area for a huge market of people that maybe haven't really unlocked that experience before, but would certainly be curious to. Again, you have to really believe in the technology that you're using, but that could be a way of creating something that feels like, that's a hot ticket. That's something I want to, at the very least, sign up for, but maybe even pay for.
100%. Yeah, I think it's going to move in some pretty interesting directions as the tech kind of supports it as well. But there is definitely that anxiety. You want the tech to be working for sure. Thanks. That's really awesome answer. Matt, what would you say are the biggest challenges you faced or different instances that you've had to overcome?
I think it will actually be a funny way to connect to the other speakers, because that is actually the worst challenge that we have, is people who have experienced bad events previously and therefore are hesitant to continue or to take the next step on virtually. Just some of the topics that you mentioned about getting paid for events. We've had several of really good examples with our customers actually maintaining the same level of price for seminars. It's just to have to dare to do that still, and they've charged that, but they've also realized that they can do, both the extension or to extend the audience, because now, instead of maybe 200 people who could attend previously, now 1,000 people or 5,000 people can attend. Which also gives you the possibility to distribute the event in different groups, so to speak. So you have exclusivity in some parts. That also means that you can lower the price for some segments, which means that you can widen your audience even more. So you have really exclusive tickets for a very limited audience, where you might even be able to have like like in this case a room with up to 100 guests, where you can really interact with one of the key speakers, and that is something that you may be able to charge premium for. And then you have like other sessions which are more open to just anybody, and there you can have a lower price and reach a wider audience. So I think we just have to be creative in how to find the models for this. So I think bad experience from previous, that might be the biggest limitation or the biggest threshold for us. Although in the beginning, of course, it might have been more in like finding out the limitations of systems. I mean, having 50,000 people in one live audience, it makes the challenges, or it sets challenges for platform systems, internet providers, anything, and also to stream into various countries. But I mean, those lessons, I guess, have been learned quite quickly.
Yeah, we have to learn them quickly, right?
Yeah,
adaptation. No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I guess that leads on well to the next question that I wanted to ask everybody, which was the number one tip that you would give to anyone planning to host their first hybrid event. So Ashley, what would you, I mean, you've given some really good insights already that kind of lead to the engagement piece, but if there's any other insights or tips that you would share, would love to hear it.
Yeah, attend other events. You know, we haven't solved it yet, and look at other hybrid events and really look at how they are designed. Try it from both perspectives. Go attend a hybrid event in person and go through it end to end. Then go attend a hybrid event virtually, like truly virtually. Like these events are multi-day, and some people say like, yeah, I've attended a hybrid event. Have you really? Like, have you attended a 3-day hybrid event, like 8 hours every single day? Think about how many hybrid events you've done that way, and what was the full experience. Did you feel excited at any point in that time? Did you feel really engaged? Did you feel like, oh, I have to go to this virtual component of the hybrid event next year? Because if you're not creating events and experiences where that like both are kind of being memorable in some type of way, then you need to evaluate like how you would put on your own event. Because again, if I put yourself in the attendee's shoes, put yourself in a sponsor's shoes, put yourself in a vendor's shoes, like you really have to. I literally just audit events all the time. I audit them, and I'll say like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, I would, might do this slightly different if I were to host the event myself. So that really is just a number one tip, because everyone thinks they've solved hybrid events, but they haven't. And it's fine. You could just, iterate and use other people's ideas or use them as inspiration and learn and iterate on it and find, the best solution for your event.
Awesome. Really great tips. Luke almost disappeared. Luke, what would you say is your number one tip to anyone that's planning on hosting an event?
It's very hard not to just borrow Ashley's one there about getting up more.
Yeah, it was a good answer, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, but just to put like a real emphasis on it, we've probably all been to a lot of at least virtual events in the last couple of years. I'm really starved of in-person experiences, actually. It's been a while since I've gone to a gig or a conference of that sort of form. So now that sort of season is kicking up, and obviously like South by Southwest around a month ago or so, I think it is just a great ripe opportunity for learning. And what I am experiencing and hearing is that no two hybrid events are the same. So there's no mold in place yet. I would also just say, like, really do your homework around the tooling. That's something I already mentioned, but I think technically speaking, it's harder to make these work. And at least from my own experience of running virtual events, underestimated that. You know, just assume that the technology won't let you down. So that's probably something to really do your due diligence with as you are sort of getting into that mode of having that hybrid event. Yeah, those would be my 2 or 3 things.
Awesome, thank you. And Matt, you probably got some good ones for us.
Yeah, of course. It's very tempting to continue where Luke was finishing off with choosing the right platform and everything, but I mean, that's given. But I would say expect nothing less. I think that is the most important thing. Don't accept anything to be like a compromise. It can be just as good. And if you're planning it for being truly hybrid with 2 audiences, plan for the 2 different audiences, of course, because they are different. Don't think that it is one event that you're putting off. It's one for the physical audience and one for the digital audience, and to some extent they might connect, but they are truly 2 different. And then you can find the interactions for them in between, so to speak. So I think that's the key, and of course to plan it like it was a physical experience. I mean, don't underestimate the opportunities that are out there. So expect nothing less. Awesome,
I love it, and you've got a great platform, so that's a great tool to choose. What vVenues has to offer. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think they were really insightful answers, and I think for anyone attending, you have probably everybody's brains are probably moving after that. So thank you. What I think we'll do now is probably move on to, with the time we have left, some questions from the audience. So I think Kimberly just posted, but if anybody attending has a question, feel free to pop it in the chat. Again, you can also tweet them to Whereby as well, whatever you prefer. So I might just start with one of the questions I think was asked a little bit earlier during the session from Stephen Taylor. And he said, I was persuaded some time ago by arguments against hybrid meetings. If even one participant is online, then the whole meeting should be online, less remote participants be disadvantaged. Does the panel have any criteria for which events should not be hybrid? Ashley, any thoughts?
Which events should not be hybrid? I would say an event shouldn't be a hybrid if there's not equity. Again, like if I'm attending, I mean, this is tough. Yeah. If I'm attending, yes. Okay. I'll be bold and I'll say this. If I'm attending a keynote in person, and then I'm also like in person watching it, if they allow for Q&A in the audience, they should be allowing for Q&A for people attending virtually. It needs to be equitable. That's just a small nuanced thing, but I would not feel great that I don't get to participate in some aspect because of that. Obviously, that's tough to say across the board, but that really just pushes event organizers to create a more equitable experience. Like I said, if you're doing a happy hour for your attendees in person, you can do some type of networking component for your virtual attendees as well. Like event organizers should try to, because in that case, like just doing the stream, to me, that's not a hybrid event. That's just I'm streaming this and I'm doing it. So if you're an event and is an experience, and it should, be touching all senses, taste, touch, feel, and like you should really be trying to push the needle, especially if you're charging. If you're going to charge someone for something, I'm expecting something in return.
For sure. I think it's what Mats was saying. Mats, you probably have some comments on this too, where you know, the hybrid event, it shouldn't, just because it's hybrid doesn't mean it should be any less, right? And what would you say?
Like Ashley says, that when you are in the planning phase, you have to evaluate, I mean, how is this best consumed? And if the conclusion is that, I mean, it's either or, then it should be either or you build the bridges, and then you have to really consider that you have to different audiences, and you have to supply or provide them both with the best possible experience.
Absolutely. Definitely. Luke, do you have any insights on that one, or do you think it's being covered?
Well, really, really good input from Matt and Ashley. The one thing I started thinking about was food. How do you make that? How can I do that virtually? How would that work? And I just kind of get into solving mode, you know?
I've
seen event organizers send gift cards. I've seen them say, here's, a virtual gift card for lunch, even, here's coffee. I've seen that for things just as small as a webinar. That's a hybrid event. Like, you can try, just trying the effort, that's a nice thing to have.
Absolutely. Sure. We've been doing that for some sort of smaller scale webinars, but it's just having something that feels like really the energy being in that room while also being in the stream at the same time can be hard to find that balance. But I think it's possible. So I think someone should really work on that. Maybe Matt has got a whole bunch of examples of people incorporating food in really interesting ways.
Yeah, but I think as well, if I don't think that you should try to solve every problem, because I mean, if you have an audience of like 2,000 people or 50,000 people, there is no way that you can supply them with food anyhow. But then if you just provide them with a good break in the, so that you make time for them to do that, and also to have alternative activities there. I mean, could be like yoga classes or whatever, so that people can go away to have their meal and then they return, and then there is always something to consume in terms of content anyhow. I think that is sufficient, so we don't have to provide them with an equal experience like the physical one.
100%. So yeah, thank you so much for that question, Stephen. I think sounds like hybrid we're still going to tackle and make them all as inclusive as possible. Really, really great answers there. We've got another question. So by experience in organising hybrid events, did you find it often more expensive and challenging for the team to organise it? Opinions, comments. Luke, do you, having just done an event yourself, did you find it more expensive or challenging because of the hybrid element?
Well, in many ways, you are trying to basically organise two events, right? It is like multiplying some of the effort. So in that way, I think a lot of event teams are working super hard to try and kind of do two events at the same time. I think that there's also, again, just that reliance on technology, which is just new to people. The event world for conferences, trade shows has existed for so many years, and we kind of know what that looks like, whereas this is still something quite foreign for some. So it's a huge opportunity for learning. In terms of the expense aspect, I don't think it has to be. I think it just depends on the scale of the event that you're trying to offer, and maybe there's some kind of aspect of, is this a free event, is this a paid event, and making sure that you're putting up a cost if you think it makes sense to, if you think the content is good enough. But you shouldn't immediately resort to that because the overheads are more expensive, right? The overheads are higher. So I think that's quite hard for people to get right, actually. And it's challenging, but in a really rewarding way, I think, because, people that run events love running events. And this is a whole different level of problem solving, working on the fly that they're perhaps not used to. So.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a really great creative challenge. We're probably coming up to time, but if Matt or if Ashley, if you have any comments on that question, feel free to jump in.
I would just like to add, just look at this event. It would never have happened if it was only possible to make a physical one. We have attendees from all across the world. So it's so easy to set up a virtual event or a hybrid event in that sense. So it should be one of the greatest opportunities to increase the amount of events that are run. So I think it's just a great opportunity. And usually if you count in all the expenses surrounding a physical event, this will always come out cheaper.
Absolutely. No, it's really great input. We are running close to time. I think we've had we've talked about a lot of really great stuff. Thanks to everybody from attending from all around the world, and extra special thank you to Ashley, Luke, and Matt providing us with some really, really useful insights. I hope it was enlightening for everybody, and it's a really exciting space to be in. So we really thank you for your time. Just a reminder to everybody, talking to Ashley's point, we are sending a recording. Wish we had some extra things to give you beyond the recording, but yeah, we are going to be sending the recording out, and feel free to reach out to marketing@whereby.com or tweet us @whereby with any additional questions or follow-ups or anything else. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
It's a
for having
pleasure.
me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.